Hi everybody, welcome to the Welsh Athletics Inspire Virtual Coaching Conference for 2022. Thank you for taking time this evening to come and watch. So we've got a wonderful coach with us who's going to talk about high performance training environments. I'd like to welcome former GB athlete and team junior GB coach Laura Turner-Alleyne. I'll let her introduce herself a little bit more.
Hi, thanks Zoe. Yeah, thanks for having me and inviting me to talk about this topic. It's not something that I really delivered very much on. I normally get asked different questions, so it was really nice to put this presentation together and just kind of think about my journey with West London Track and Field and the things that I've been doing over the last few years. So I'm excited to share this all with you guys today. Let me do that. There we go. Okay, so just a quick biog about myself. Ran for GB for 10 years, went to the Olympics in Beijing, World Championships, retired 8 years ago, having competed for 10 years for GB. Within that time, I did a Masters in Exercise Physiology at Brunel, and I'm now head coach at West London Track and Field, which we set up in 2014. And I'm a GB junior coach with sprints, hurdles and relays, working on the Futures programme. And this year I will be the team leader for the juniors in the Mannheim Gala. So what is high performance? I think it's a really difficult thing to define, and it can relate to so many different topics in life, not just sport. So I did a good old Google search just to try and get some ideas and get some words out there, and there wasn't really much, inspiration, but these are the kind of words that were coming up in the Google search. I'm just trying to press the right buttons here. There we go. So words like better, faster, operating above average standard, being more efficient than others. And if you were all here with me live, I would ask you to throw some words in the chat box. I'm sure we could come up with a plethora of words that you could use to describe high performance. I just want to fix on that word efficient there. I think it's a really interesting word. And I think clarifying the difference between being effective and being efficient is important at this point. So being effective is doing things right, and being efficient is doing the right things. So when you're operating at high performance, it's being efficient that's the most important thing out of those. So looking specifically at a high performance environment as opposed to high performance athletes or a high performance coach or a high performance club or whatever else you want to use, we're just going to drill down just into the actual environment side of that. So when I started building West London Track and Field and I started reading and looking at all kinds of kind of business strategy and startup articles and reading and listening to podcasts, etc., I came across this golden circle which Simon Sinek talks about. It's a concept that Simon Sinek talks about, and he talks about it in relation to business. And I think specifically he uses Apple as a really good example of a successful business that uses and works within this golden circle idea. So he says that a load of companies and loads of organizations know what they do. So they know what the services are or what they sell and their products that they have on offer. They usually know how they're doing it, so they know what's special about them or what sets them apart or what their USP is. But many organizations don't know what their why is. They don't know what their purpose or their cause is, or their reason for existence. So he came up with this golden circle concept because he believes that you should start with the why. And there's a really good book called Start With Why that Simon's written. I suggest, if you guys are interested in this, it's a really interesting read. I really did enjoy it. So he suggests starting with why. The first thing when you're setting something up or developing a company, a group, an environment, a project, whatever it is starting with why. What's the purpose? Why are you here? What's the reason for this thing even existing in the first place? Then next you look at the how. So now you're looking at, okay, why, what makes us special about what we're going to do and how we're going to deliver this mission and this purpose that we've already set out. And then the last thing you look at is the what. So exactly what it is you're going to provide. So it's quite interesting just to see this kind of the way that he methodically looks at this order of things as opposed to the reverse order, which some people or organizations do. So I thought what I'd start with is I'd talk about how West London has been developed and how it's grown, and then we'll kind of summarize it in terms of kind of general principles afterwards. So West London Track and Field, as I say, we set it up in 2014. And we felt that athletics was a bit amateurish in terms of both the financial sense, but also sometimes in its delivery. And we thought, well, why can't everyone have access to a great team around them? Why is it just the athletes on funding that have this brilliant team of people around them in this environment? And why is it that people are okay to pay for swimming lessons and they're okay to pay for gymnastics and tennis club and all those clubs that parents are happy to shell out money for, but yet no one's happy to pay for athletics? So that we came to our vision. Our vision was to provide, or our mission is another word you could use, to provide a professional training environment for track and field athletes of all abilities. So whether you're a club athlete or whether you're a GB athlete, we want to be able to provide that really good training environment, a high performance training environment for everyone to access. And then off the back of our vision, we have our values, which we think underpin our mission there: respect, dedication, excellence, perseverance, and precision. Now, we are deeply rooted in our values. They are around our logo. You can see on the bottom of the slide there, those words go around our logo. When we're doing athlete reviews, we're referring to the values and we're asking athletes and coaches for examples of when they displayed those values. We have them up in the office. We have post-it notes of athletes giving examples of when they've displayed those values, etc., etc. So we do refer to, and we do place a lot of emphasis on our values at West London Track and Field. So that's our why. That was kind of the reason for our existence. That's why we set up West London Track and Field. Next, move on to the how. So the how for me is, with West London in particular, it's all about the people. And I realised pretty quickly that it's a people's business, and that's kind of life in general, isn't it, really? And we, West London, are only going to be as good as the people who work with us. So I've been really, really meticulous with the people that I've asked to be involved with us. One bad egg could be a complete disaster. So we currently have a team of 13 coaches. Currently have a team of 13 coaches. We've got S&C coaches, we've got therapists, we've got interns. Many of our wider team did start as interns. I think it's a good way to introduce people into West London, to get them used to our values, the ethos, the way we work, and also for me to get an idea of the people that they are and just make sure that we're a good fit for each other. And athlete-wise, we have in excess of 30 athletes now across all of our groups from of age 12 and upwards. And we've got a thriving junior section, both based here and based in Woking, with children aged between 7 and 12. Again, I'm really careful with who I ask to join the group or invite to join the group. They're usually recommended by other members of the training group. There's definitely athletes that I know would never ever ask me to coach them or would never ask to join our group, because they know the way that we operate and they probably know they're just not a good fit for how we work. So I do get people that want to join the group. I do get them down and we have a chat, and they maybe watch a session and just get to know them a little bit more and set our expectations really, really early on to make sure that they are the right people and they are the right fit, and that this is going to work for us and will also work for them. The next thing is collaboration. So I'm really big on this, the team element of this, and I really can't do this by myself. So this is most of our core coaching team in this picture here, and we've stood on a spotlight profile mapped. And I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Spotlight, but I really, really like it. It's a personality profiling tool. We've used it to help us understand ourselves better, but also to help understand how we can work with each other better within our team, and then see our blind spots as a team. So we've got a lot of empathetic people, not me. A lot of these guys are very empathetic, it turns out, and I'm a bit more kind of forceful in the way I'm delivering things. So that has left a big gap in our kind of profile as a team. So it's been really interesting I think for the coaches to see their profile and see their kind of biases and their strengths and their blind spots, but also what that means for the team. And when we're having team meetings and discussing certain things, it's called the empty chair. So looking at what's the voice that we're not hearing because it's the voice that's missing within our team, and then which allows us to have a really good kind of all-round perspective to whenever we're talking about our program or our service. Frequent communications, yeah, I think these guys, I'm a big communicator. So we're all coaching. On Monday's our big day when everyone's in coaching at some point during the day, and then there's 2 or 3 other days in the week when there's the majority of staff in. WhatsApp groups, voice notes, you know, you name it, we do it. We talk a lot, always discussing things to do with athletes or the program, or just, you know, general life. But I think it's really, really important to be frequently communicating with your team, but also with the athletes as well, making sure the athletes feel that they're being listened to, they're being heard, and just getting to know them a bit better, you know, away from the track, at the track, and also away from the track. And the last thing, I think, in the how is modelling. It's quite an interesting concept, especially being an ex-athlete myself, is that I feel that this comes from me as a leader mainly, and it's something that I'm very, very mindful of when I'm coaching, when I'm speaking with athletes, when I'm speaking with coaches, when I'm just generally around my team, is that my energy remains high and my standards remain high. And I think this sets the bar for everyone else, the coaches, the therapists, and the athletes. And it does send a strong message to everyone that these are our standards, these are our values. And, you know, if I can be the person that's kind of leading from that front, then hopefully that the rest of the coaches will take that on board, and the athletes will appreciate that and see that as well. So next, so we've done the why, we've done the how, and then the what, which I think is actually the easiest part of this whole thing. The what is essentially the training program. So it's the smallest, and it is the smallest, I guess, but it's the easiest part of the high performance training environment. Okay, so it's one small element of the high performance training environment. It's your program and your training philosophy. So ours is very much quality over quantity. We are very mindful of everything we're doing. Everything we do has a purpose. Every drill, every rep, everything in the gym we've done, there is a reason why it's being done. We encourage, we sit down with the athletes at the start of every block, and we explain to them what each day looks like, why we're doing everything we're doing, and where it's going, and how it's going to help them, and what kind of where that goes in for the summer months. Essentially, we encourage the athletes to ask questions. So if they're doing something and they really don't know why they're doing it, they come and ask us, what's this for, what's this working on? And if we can't answer it, they should not be doing it. So that's kind of our golden rule. If we can't tell an athlete or answer an athlete's question as to why they're doing something, it won't be in there. And like I said, that doesn't happen in our program. We're always able to explain why something's in there for certain athletes. So that's the kind of the main part of the what, I suppose. Another side of the what, of the service, of the products that we're providing, are reviews. So this is, I don't know if you can see that, it's terribly small, isn't it? We normally have that printed on a big A3 sheet of paper, so it's actually readable. We review with the athletes. Athletes and coaches do a full review at the end of every year. So they'll reflect on the training they've done, they'll reflect on the competitions, and they'll take learnings from that into the next year. And then we also have regular touch points throughout the season. So you can see on this form, we've got 4 touch points throughout the year here, which is a dedicated sit down time with video analysis. And this particular form is our technical review process. So athlete and coach will sit down with some videos from the previous couple of months of training, and they'll go through those technical points. It's a really simple tick or cross. So if we take one, I'm trying to read it, it's really small. Foot lands under centre of mass in acceleration. So you watch the video, is the foot landing under centre of mass, tick or cross, and then you may want to make a note about it. They'll go through all those elements on the side there. And then at the end of the meeting, the athlete and coach will decide on an action plan and what it is they're going to work on for the next block of training. It'll be one thing from each section at absolute most. So everyone's really clear on where they're at and where they're going. This gives us a good timestamp of progress across the year. It also is a really good opportunity to make sure the athletes understand what we're saying. So it's really easy at a training session to say something, for example, get your foot under your hip or whatever it's going to be. But do they understand what you mean by that? And do they know what that even means or how to do it? Is there another way you have to say that for them to understand it? So having some time to sit down and discuss these things really helps athlete and coach both make sure that what they're talking about actually gets through and it is having an effect. The next part of the way we deliver our service is to do with data. So we do collect data, and every program in a high performance environment is based on science. So there has to be an element of science in there for it to be classed as a high performance environment. We collect data throughout the year. This is just an example of some jump data that we collect on a weekly basis, double leg and single leg. It helps inform the bigger picture. So this doesn't dictate where the program goes, but it gives us an idea. It's one piece of the puzzle, along with other bits, of the huge puzzle that we have, which are athletes, which helps inform our programming program for the next coming blocks, and also maybe helps us understand where the athletes' strengths and weaknesses are. And now I'm quite fortunate that I have a sports scientist that works in our team, and he's able to crunch all these numbers for me, because it can be overwhelming collecting all these numbers. And I think it's only a benefit collecting the numbers if you're actually going to use them. So our sports scientist's job is to collect the numbers and present them to me in a readable way, and just let me know what the key findings are and what the implications for training are. So unless you've got someone that can do that for you, I wouldn't say that the data is a massive part. It has to be usable, and it has to inform training, and it has to be one part of a bigger puzzle. So that's the West London why, how, what, from the Simon Sinek model. What we're just going to kind of wrap that up a little bit and try and kind of how I would go about creating a high performance environment, based on what I've learned with West London, but also for reading that I've done around this topic for a number of years now, because I find it quite interesting. So going back to Simon Sinek's model, so starting with why, again, I've got the book actually down there. I should have had it just to show you it, but Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It really, really helped me, and it keeps me grounded all the time. And I think as a coach or as a leader or as a business owner, whatever it is, it really does help you stay focused on what your purpose is. So it is your purpose, your vision, your mission. All these words are kind of much the same, but having established that first and foremost is the most important thing. I did go onto the Welsh Athletics website actually, and I found the vision for Welsh Athletics, and I'm going to read it out to you. The vision for Welsh Athletics: to be the #1 sport for participation and opportunities across Wales, underpinned by a world-class development programme. We will achieve this by being a sector-leading organisation for governance, collaboration, innovation and modernisation. So Welsh Athletics have a vision. That is their vision. You will find every single company or business, whatever it is, will have a vision or a purpose. And I think when I was setting up West London as a high performance environment, again, there had to be a bigger meaning to just getting athletes to run fast. That isn't really enough for me. Being really, really deep rooted in a sense, a bigger sense of purpose than that. And then the values. So I've already gone through West London values, and the Welsh Athletics values: fun, excellence, ambition, togetherness, respect, trust. So again, really simple words that hopefully everyone can understand, and everyone can see how that drives the vision. And this purpose, the vision, the mission, the values, they all have to be something that staff, coaches, members, and whatever the setup is, everyone has to be able to buy into it, and everyone has to kind of get it. Again, that's why I think I'm quite picky with the people that I'm asking to be involved with West London, because they understand the purpose, they understand our values, and they are able to get on board with that and kind of align with our values. You can, literature does say, they suggest things like standard operating procedures or code of conducts, having something written down. I'm very much a paper and pen type of person, so that's the kind of thing that we have at West London. And it's just a really easy thing to have that's visual, that keeps everyone grounded, that you can refer back to, and keeps everyone literally on the same page. And then looking at how, so as I've already alluded to, it's having good people, having a good team around you. I recognised instantly the moment I started coaching that I could not do this by myself. I think working in silo is really dangerous. And I think having a team of people around you is the best way to work within a high performance environment. I'm just going to throw this picture up again. If we were all live and there was people here with me, more than just Zoe, I would ask you guys to write in the chat box what you see when you look at this picture. Now I'm now seeing a rabbit. This morning when I woke up, I was seeing a duck, but it's a task just to show that some people will see a rabbit, some people will see a duck. It's exactly the same picture, but different people have a different perspective. And I think that's what's cool about working in a team, in a high performance environment. It's the collaboration and working with people with different perspectives on things. So we all have the same end goal and we all know what we're working towards. We know what the vision is, we know what the values are. We all have that. But working with a team of people and collaborating with different people, you have different ways to get there, different perspectives, different views on the world. And I think that's a really, really nice side of these high performance environments. Having a growth mindset, so working with like-minded people, people that want to learn, people that want to grow and develop, people that can plan, do, review, and just keep repeating that process, always looking for ways to improve, always appreciating what they've already done to get to where they are and looking for the gaps to make those small improvements along the way. Having consistency of service, so I'm sure lots of coaches can understand when it's a cold February or cold March evening and it's pitch black and it's pouring with rain. Sorry, there's a really loud plane going overhead. It's really easy to become quite demotivated, shall we say. But I think if you're working within that high performance environment, it's important that you can consistently provide a high level of service. So being able to deliver a really high quality session, regardless of what's happening or how you're feeling or what the circumstances are. Frequent communications, again, I've already alluded to it. I'm a big communicator. I think it's really important. Different ways of doing it work for different people. But again, communicating with your team, so sharing ideas, sharing findings, discussing different ideas to go forwards and just seeing, oh, did you see that? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Etc, etc. But also just checking in on everyone within the team, so the coaches and the athletes. People like to know that you care. So just frequently checking in with them, seeing how they're doing, again, on the track and away from the track. Really, really important that everyone feels like they're cared for and there's someone there that's talking to them. And then there's modelling again, we've already spoken about it before, but I think being really mindful of what you're projecting as a leader, as a coach, as a person in position of power or you know, in charge of a group or a few athletes. I think your behaviours and your body language that you project can have probably more impact than you might be aware of. So that's something that you need to be really, really mindful of when you're interacting with athletes or other coaches or people within your high performance environment. And then looking at the what. So the what again is the training programs. That is your product, that is your service within a high performance environment. As I said, it has to be based in science. Otherwise, in my opinion, it's not high performance. This is the easiest part. This is the smallest part. This is the easiest part. I think if you can get your why and get your how right, I think the what takes care of itself and is essentially the easiest part. And that's something certainly over my 8 years so far of coaching, I've realised when I first started coaching, I think I was really caught up with the X's and the O's and writing the best possible training programme and really diving deep into the technical things. And what I've realised over time is that's great that I can do that, but that's actually quite easy for anyone to learn how to do that. What's really difficult is working daily towards a shared mission, is getting people to work together, collaborating, pulling people's ideas, leading, motivating. Those are the really, really hard parts. That, as I say, the what for me, the training programs is probably a little bit easier. So hopefully that's just given you a bit of an idea about how I see a high performance training environment and what I feel like the most important parts of that. I'm now going to talk a bit about national governing body programs. So when we talk about that, we're talking about, for example, a Welsh athletics program or a British athletics program. Now I kind of wear two hats on this because I have a couple of athletes who are on a British athletics program. So I'm a personal coach to athletes on those programs. And also I am a point of contact and I work for British athletics within that program. So I've sat on both sides of the fence, and I guess I've seen the workings from both sides. I've got a really clear understanding of how these programs operate and how you can get the best out of them. So the first thing, whenever you're working on one of these one of the programs, is you should be taken through an athlete IAP, an individual athlete plan. Now this will identify the targets for the year, your success factors. So what is it you need to improve on in order to reach those targets? And then an evaluation of your current environment. So what does that look like? Who's writing the training program? Is there any monitoring? What's the support like? What's the physio? Are there any injury niggles? What are the concerns? Where are the gaps? So that should be the first thing that happens within one of these programs. And then I think with the services that you have on board, so the services will be things like psychology, nutrition, biomechanics, sometimes physiology, performance lifestyle, is ask them questions. It's not just a case of them telling you stuff. That's not really getting the best out of the program for you or the athletes you're working with. So once you've gone through the athlete IAP process, there should be things that you're trying to improve on that you've identified you need some help with. So it's then for you as the coach and the athlete, hopefully, to go to those services. So for example, if we're a sprint hurdler, for example, and we know that our acceleration needs work, and we've established that in the IAP, I'd be going to the biomechanist and I'd be saying, okay, show me what the best hurdlers in the world, what their acceleration looks like, what are their step lengths to the first hurdle, how quick is it, how high is their hip, all these kind of questions. So they're giving you answers and helping you solve these problems that you have. Reviewing regularly is important. So as I said, we do that with West London, but also with the athlete IAP, that should be reviewed every quarter. So you can check in with progress, and to make sure there is progress. There may not be progress in some areas, it may be a bit slower, but there'll be certainly things that you can tick off along the way as kind of complete, and that you can move on to the next thing. I think also if you are working with a number of services, so nutritionists, etc., getting everyone together just to remind them of what you're working towards is key as well. So everyone is still, the why is still really strong, and we don't just get caught up in kind of the end result, but we're all kind of checking in regularly of what it is that we're working towards together. So you may hear the phrase the athletes driving their bus, and the people on their bus are the coaches, their parents, the nutritionist, the biomechanist, their governing body. All these people are on this bus, and people say that the athletes should drive the bus. Now, I have to say I don't agree with that, especially when we're talking about young or developing athletes. I think in that situation, the coach is driving the bus and the coach is delivering driving lessons to the athlete. So this is the analogy. We're going to go with the bus analogy. So the coach initially is driving the bus, and the coach is giving driving lessons to the athlete. So that hopefully over time, that athlete, as they develop and get older and have a better understanding about themselves and the team around them and what's required, they can then be driving their bus. And then the coach becomes the sat-nav programmer. So the coach is still help steering in the right direction, but the athlete is the person driving that forward. So I hope that analogy makes sense, but we do hear a lot about this bus analogy, and I like to push back on it quite a lot. But within that as well, if you've got to imagine all the people that are on that bus in your team, if you like, regular communication with them, and ideally coming through the driver of the bus. So if you're working with young or developing athletes, all coming through the coach, so the athlete is getting one main voice coming to them. Rather than 5 or 6 different people. That's a lot for a young person to try and get their head around. So I think there has to be someone driving it, and just be mindful of how that communication from within the team gets through to the athlete. Remember, you don't need to use everything. Just because there is a biomechanist or a physiologist or a psychologist, you haven't got to use them. I think always go back to that athlete IAP. What are the gaps? What is it that we're working on at the moment? Who do I need to go and ask questions from? And remembering that they are there to help you. So go out to them, reach out to them, ask them questions. These practitioners, they love it when coaches come to them with really specific questions for them to work through. They would rather not just kind of spew out generic information to people. They would rather work really specifically with coaches and athletes on really specific problems. So yeah, you haven't got to use everyone, but the people that you do use, remember, they are there to help you, and make sure you make the most of them. Okay, I have no idea how long I was talking for, but thank you for listening. If you do have any questions, that's my email address, and all my social media is that handle, Laura Turner 100. So please just reach out with any questions that you have. But I think Zoe might have some questions for me now, so I will stop talking for a little while.
Thanks for all of your input, Laura. It was really, really interesting to kind of, from your point of view, how you've approached creating that high performance environment. I've got a couple of questions, as you alluded to. So how has your approach to coaching changed since you started on your journey?
Yeah, I think I did allude to this a little bit when I was talking, but certainly when I started coaching, I was completely obsessed with numbers, training programs, technical things, looking at videos, and the real hard science, because I've come from a hard science background. So my master's in exercise physiology, so I love science and I love numbers, and I really love all that stuff. And I was really focused on that when I first started coaching. But the longer I've been coaching and the more I've kind of built West London up, I've realized that actually what's the hardest thing as a coach, but I think the most powerful thing, is more about that environment that you're creating and the culture that you're creating with your group or business, whatever it is that you're doing. So I'd say I've definitely become less obsessed with numbers, and I do have someone that helps with numbers now, because otherwise I think you can get completely obsessed with that side of things. And I'm certainly more looking at the holistic environment. What is the culture? And getting the best out of not only the athletes, but also the other coaches that I'm working with.
And what advice would you give coaches wanting to develop athletes in a talent pathway?
So again, I think being really specific with what it is you want and what it is you need. So going through that review process with the athlete, the individual athlete plan, looking at the current performance level, and then looking at the gaps and looking at how you're going to fill those gaps, and then reaching out to the services and being really, really specific with what you want. As I say, if it is just generic information, that's fine. I think being really open and honest with them is interesting. I think if you're just starting out really fresh and don't really know much about what a biomechanist does or what a nutritionist does, I think it's a really valuable idea just to sit down and say to them, right, can you tell me a little bit more about what it is you can provide and how you can help us? And then you can kind of go away from that. And then once you've looked at the IAP, you can work out who can help you with certain things. But I think being quite specific with what it is you're looking for is the most important thing there.
What advice would you give coaches who are maybe function in a club environment and they perhaps don't feel like they have the control to sort of manage who's involved in their groups at either an athlete or kind of co-coaching level? What advice would you give to people?
I think communication. I think you may not be able to control exactly who's part of your team, but if they've been forced upon you or you're having to work within the constraints of the club, etc., I just think building those relationships with people as much as you can, and finding the best way to work with people. And I know this is some people are really hard to work with, but there's always a way to find a win-win situation for everyone. So I think just really good communication, building some strong relationships, and finding some common ground so that it is a win-win situation, and that it's both sides are seeing it as a positive, or seeing their actions as a positive thing.
Thank you so much again. I think some of your answers there, providing people with perhaps a little bit of reflection on where they're at and where they can take their environments and how to maybe go about solving some of those challenges. So thank you so much for today. And yeah, that's kind of the first in our series of Inspire sessions for the Welsh Athletics Coaching Conference. Obviously the theme this year is Club to Commonwealth Games potential. So hopefully some of the coaches out there who are really interested in becoming more immersed in that talent pathway, this will have been really useful for them. and hopefully be involved in some athletes who are going to Commonwealth Games in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.